So, the film review section this week, we have been looking at WandaVision, as has the rest of the world.
WandaVision.
Oh yeah, I like that jingle. So this, in case you've been living under a rock, is Marvel's first, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe's first TV show. And it's Wanda and Vision. So what we usually do in this section is we go for synopsis, we give you a general thoughts, non-spoilers, then we open it up to spoilers, and give you a summary at the end. Everything's time-stamped below, so if you haven't watched it and you want to jump around and avoid spoilers, then feel free to do so, or you can go away, watch the whole of WandaVision, and come back and listen to this. At least this will be shorter than WandaVision is. That's not always true of our film review sections.
Yeah, hopefully anyway.
So the synopsis for this, the only synopsis I've really got for this is, it's Wanda and Vision, sitcoms, and something's up.
That is it. I think that was the pitch. Because I'll be honest with you, straight from the off, right? I tend to not care about hype. If something's really hyped and I haven't watched it, if I'm not interested in it, I won't watch it. If I am, I'll watch it. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I was part of the hype for this. Even in the first 2 or 3 episodes, when people are kind of still not sure about it, I'm like, I don't care. It's going to be awesome, I'm telling you. I was like, nobody was listening, but I was like, I'm telling you, this is going to be great.
That's because you live alone, Sean. You were just talking to yourself. It's going to be great. No one's listening.
Even my chair fell over. I didn't want to know. But honestly, I think it's one of the greatest things that's been on TV in a long time.
Yeah, and it should be, because it cost $225 million to make. No other TV show costs that much money. If this was shit, someone would be getting shot.
Oh yeah.
$225 million for a fucking 9-episode TV show. Oh, but swearing in this. I always like to make that point just after I've said fuck. It's in the show notes.
What's the Marvel films? 22, 23, 20, 21, whatever it is. They've averaged $1 billion a film. So they've got a few spare to crack out a couple of millions on a TV show. It's just a 10 pence for that. So, it won't make much of a difference.
And it's owned by Disney as well, and Disney have a lot of cash to spare. But sometimes
Disney have all the money.
They goose stuff. Some Disney stuff is crap. So yeah, there was always a chance. But the thing I thought with this one, like you said, it was a big thing for the show to say, right, we're going to really commit to this bit of doing, these period-specific and faithful homages to sitcoms, for 3 weeks.
And those styles of sitcoms haven't been popular for about 30 years. So it's just like even longer than that. But so it's a big risk.
Aye. And especially releasing it weekly when we live in a world where if something comes out, it comes out and you binge the whole lot in a day. Saying, nah, you're going to get 2, then you have to wait a week, you get another one.
But you know what it is, though? It proved that works. And I think more streaming companies have to do that. Because after 3 weeks, it became the #1 show in the world.
Did it? Right.
Yeah. And if they put it all out in one, I think it was maybe 4 weeks. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it went from something like 75 in the world, 22, 1, and it stayed there. So if they'd have just whacked it all in a oneer, people would have been talking about it for that weekend, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
But because it was week after week, it gives you time to talk about it. It gives you time to get the buzz out there, and it works.
That's like our podcast. That's why we only release it every 2 weeks.
It works. Went from 1 viewer, listener to 6. It's great. we're on our way, but it worked. And because of the stuff they put in the show, because of some of the things that put in there, some of the red herrings, some of the could this be this, could that be that? If it was all done in one weekend, there'd be no time to talk about it. Yeah. And it just proves that weekly releases work. To be honest, the only issue I had, we'll get into a bit more of it, but I just wanted a bit more. I wanted each episode to be a little bit longer.
Right.
But
I quite liked it, especially the first couple when it was just those sitcom bits. That was enough for me. Unlike you, when I watched the first couple, I was like, if this wasn't Marvel, I wouldn't be coming back to this week on week. If I didn't have the confidence in the brand and what they've done before and what they've given me before, if that was just 3 episodes of a sitcom and something's up at the end of it, probably would have been not continuing with it. But because it is Marvel and I was convinced it was going to be good like you, I'm like, oh, this is enough to keep me interested because I kind of know where they're going with it.
Yeah, and there was one thing that did get... it's not an issue with Marvel itself or the stories that we're telling or whatever it was. there was one negative about this whole series with me, and it's always the same with anything that, if it's a big franchise, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Doctor Who, whether it's Marvel, DC, wrestling, fans do my head in. And I'm one of them. We're both one of them. Everybody does it. Everyone comes up with an idea of where they think it's going to go. And when it doesn't go that way, it turns, that's it, it's crap. And I'm sure we'll get to the end when we get to the end, but I've read a lot of stuff online where people were, it's the best thing ever. And then because they didn't get what they wanted, it was ruined. And I fell into some of the hype expecting to maybe see this or that or him or her. And it didn't happen.
We're reviewing a certain X-Men film because I thought it might tie into mutants, and I text you saying, I reckon this is going to happen. You're like, it's not really. I'm like, I reckon it is though.
I was like, no, I don't think so. But that kind of got to me because some of my expectations went a bit. But it's not their fault. It's our fault for getting expectations about certain things, and they might not turn out that way. I try my hardest to go in with an open mind, and that's why when a lot of people are talking about mutants and stuff, and I'm like, I don't see it, and I'll get into why later on.
That might be a spoiler, by the way, that they didn't do mutants.
It's fine. It's all right. You can't not. It's been out for a few weeks now. We're all good.
Well, that's the thing that I was going to say as well. Like, they aren't responsible for our fan theory, so they've got no obligation to meet our expectations when we're setting our own expectations. They do have they should be paying off what they set up themselves. And I think for this series, they paid off what they wanted to pay off. They did set some of the things up, and in rewatching it for this, there were some things that I thought, that wasn't just the fans going off on one. They were actually plugging that as being something. But they were red herrings. They were deliberate red herrings. So, designed for that.
They trolled the fans in certain things, and I think that's amazing. I love it.
Aye. Trolling fans and fan service are equally good, I think.
Yeah, because there's one bit, again, it might be a spoiler, so I might wait. But there was an interview with Paul Bettany where he's like, he got to work with an actor he's watched.
I've got that in my spoilers bit because I'm like, we'll not say who it was.
I love that payoff.
I do like that payoff.
But again, we might get into a bit more, but there was an interview, and this was another thing with the fan theories because they took this interview out of context. There was an interview, I think, with Elizabeth Olsen, and because, again, this is a spoiler for Mandalorian, but I'm going to spoil it. Luke Skywalker at the end, someone asked her, because it's a Disney Plus thing, what is it going to be a Luke Skywalker-esque or level of cameo? And she said, possibly. Diplomatic answer. Yeah. So everyone was waiting for this big Luke Skywalker cameo. I was hoping it was Luke Skywalker. That'd been great.
Well, they own everything, don't they, Disney? So it could have been. Just the Mandalorian rocks up with Baby Yoda, throws him at Wanda, and Luke Skywalker slices Baby Yoda in half. And Wanda's like, no, you can't do that, and rewinds time with a magic and stuff like that. I could see. There you go. Disney, call me. I've got. There's loads of these knocking around in my head. Call me.
But in terms of like episode 1, I like how it was just pretty much just a sitcom, and how freaky it became at certain points.
Aye, like the Twilight Zone sort of thing.
And I'm trying hard not to talk about more spoilers.
Well, we can get into that in spoilers. I was trying to go in for a summary of things that I liked in non-spoilers, so that we've got something in non-spoilers and not just. We can't talk about any of this. I think Catherine Hahn is brilliant. She's an absolute standout for me, as she is in everything that I see her in. But I'm not a huge fan of Elizabeth Olsen, and I don't think she does the big stuff well. Big sort of like huge acting. But what she does do really well, and the cast around her are really good at doing, is the emotional stuff, which is what this is. It's an emotional story.
I think she does. I think she did the big things well. She's the poster girl in this. She's the front and center, and I thought she was the best thing in this, in my opinion. And I think she did the big stuff really well. But you're right; it's just little things in certain episodes as the show progressed. Some of the little stuff she was doing really stood out.
Yeah,
she's Oscar level.
She is. I mean, I think she's brilliant. I'm just not entirely sure this is the role for her, Wanda Maximoff. But what do I know?
Well, I'll be honest with you. For me, I think she is this show. I think she was phenomenal throughout. I really do like her as an actress, and I think she owned it. But especially like the little each era of the sitcom. Like she was really believable in the 50s sort of style, and and each time it moved on, she was really believable in it. And but one thing I thought was amazing is, even though they're a couple, her and Paul Bettany, I'm trying to think, they don't have that much screen time overall in the rest of the
They don't,
Marvel
and
films,
that's one thing
together.
That stood out to me this time, again, going back through it again, is that I think the reason why the emotional stuff that happens in this, and all the stuff that happens in this, really sort of play so well for me, more so than a lot of the films, and we'll get into that in spoilers. But I think the reason for that is because we've had the time to spend with these two characters that we just haven't had in the films, especially with these two, but also with other characters. You know, that you think of like other characters that pop up in MCU films, they're set up and you know enough about them for the film to function. But like so with this, what else could they do with this? And I'm really excited about what else there is going forward.
But it's their chemistry. I think they were amazing together. And I'm trying to think, there's not been that much screen time with the pair of them together in the past.
No.
Because that bit in which one of the Avengers, was it the first Avengers Infinity War, when they were in Edinburgh?
Yes, we'll deep fry your kebab.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, spoilers for Infinity War.
Yeah.
People in Edinburgh will deep fry your kebab.
But then also, like, there's that, and there's obviously the bit in Endgame that they've got together, or Infinity War, where everyone is. I get those two mixed up. It's just one big film to me. So yeah, even though they're meant to be the couple, you don't really get a lot of them.
No.
And even though a lot of the stuff you're seeing in this might not be as it seems, but the bits together when you know what it's meant to be and you know it's them and it's real and it's just, they're so good together. They bounce off each other really well, and they're believable as a couple. And I think in real life, I can't remember the exact number, I think there might be an 18-year age gap between
there is. I mean, and that I thought that in the films, you know, when Paul Bettany appears as Paul Bettany. But the thing that they did really well in this is whenever Vision is himself and wanting to be his emotional self, you see him as the Vision. And whenever he's putting on the front, you see him as Paul Bettany. And I think that worked for multiple reasons. It worked for that, but I never noticed it whilst watching it. But you do when you know that, when you know, oh, they put loads of money into these scenes because they really wanted that to be his authentic self, and that's when he was him. And I think that sort of hides the age gap a bit, but I never really thought about it at all after the films, you know, when this series, it never popped up in my head. Yeah. No, should it really? I mean, people of all different ages can do whatever they want. You know, providing that they're over the legal age of consent, of course. So should we jump into spoilers, do you reckon, now?
Yeah, I think we need to.
I'm uneasy anyway. I'm sort of like, I'm looking at stuff going, well, I've put that in my non-spoilers list, but I don't know. Is it a spoiler? So let's just, go and watch WandaVision.
Yes.
Come back, and now spoilers. Paul Bettany cameos as himself. You were going to say something about that.
Yeah. The one actor, everyone's like, oh, who's this actor going to be? Could it be Ian McKellen as Magneto?
I think I was the one who said it's going to be Magneto, Sean. It's going to be Ian McKellen, or it's going to be Michael F. Fassbender. That's who it's going to be.
You know what? Let's get on to that, right? If, like, spoilers, obviously you watched it. There's no mutants. X-Men don't turn up, right? So my argument was,
we shouldn't have to watch that Wolverine film. Is that going to be your argument?
No. My argument was, why on earth would Marvel want that X-Men cast or that X-Men universe in their universe? Because it died a death.
Well, my argument to that was going to be that some of the characters are beloved, hence Evan Peters coming into this. While people didn't like the films, they like it. They like some of the cast, and they like Michael Fassbender. They like James McAvoy. They like Ian McKellen. They like Patrick Stewart and things like that, and they like Evan Peters. So my argument to that would have been that it was a multi-dimensional thing. So after Evan Peters rocked up, I'm like, we're going to get a Magneto. Because it's multi-dimensional, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But then that's the thing as well, though, because it is going to be like it's a multiverse thing. That's what they're setting up. Because I think WandaVision, third Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange 2, it's all going to kind of be, it's not like a trilogy of things, but it's kind of an interwoven story.
Yeah.
That's how they're setting up the multiverse thing. And yeah, that could be a thing. It could be just from other universes. But then my argument to that would have been, if they want to set up their own, why would they introduce the others as well? Yeah. Unless they're going to close them off.
Aye. The other one was, why would they introduce it in a TV series that people might not watch? You know, because I had no intention of watching these TV shows, because I'm like, look, I haven't got the time.
Well, I think because of COVID, I think including WandaVision's the first of 10 Marvel properties this year.
Aye.
10. four of them are series. The rest are films. And that's a lot. But, you know, about 4 of them are meant to be coming out last year, so, you know, we'll let them off. But yeah, so it's like with the Evan Peters thing, though, I was thinking, I didn't want him to be the other Quicksilver, because I thought that's an amazing troll from Marvel. I wanted them to be trolling us because I thought it was brilliant. Because I'm thinking they want to have that kind of part of the story. They want to get into that like dramatic part for Wanda's story. What can they do? They can't get somebody who just happens to look a little bit like Aaron Taylor Johnson. They can't get Aaron Taylor Johnson because it wouldn't make sense emotionally or storyline wise. So it's going to be a fake one. Who can we get? We own Fox now. Because if they didn't own Fox, they wouldn't have got Evan Peters, I don't think.
No, they wouldn't have. No, they wouldn't have been able to use him. No, so I mean, but when Evan Peters rocked up the door at the end of that episode, I'm not like one of these people who gets excited in my living room watching stuff. I don't even do that in the cinema, but I started clapping. I stood up as well. I stood up in my living room, started clapping. I'm like, yes, well done, because it just got me excited, and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. And no matter what they did with it, that moment was brilliant. Oh, yeah. You know, like regardless of what happens thereafter, that moment when he showed up at the door, I was like, oh, yes.
But it's Darcy's reaction as well. It's like, did we cast Pietro?
Yeah, and then the following episode is like, is that Quicksilver? Like, yeah, but he's got the wrong face. Like, Darcy was really annoyed about it. Oh, Kat Dennings, I thought was amazing.
She's amazing.
I've got a quote from her, which after Wanda breaks through the hex and comes out and has a go at the guy, and, you know, he ruins it. They all walk into, like, a briefing room, and Kat Dennings turns around and says, here he comes, the man who almost got murdered by his own murder squad.
Yeah. Honestly, just the little things she does as well, because like the one negative thing I've got, like she just vanishes at the end. She's gone.
I was a bit disappointed at that, but that's COVID.
Is that what it was?
She was meant to be coming in for another scene, but because of COVID, she couldn't get there.
Right.
As was Doctor Strange. There was an actual Doctor Strange cameo planned originally.
Yeah.
But this was way back when there was 10 episodes.
Because I thought there was going to be maybe him or Spider-Man because they're interlinked, so it wouldn't have been as... Mm-hmm. But then again, it wouldn't have been... Why would that be amazing? Because you expect to see them, so it would have been cool to see them, but it wouldn't be something worth getting like, oh, could they turn up?
I like to be surprised, so like I don't want things to do what I expect them to do. I want to be surprised, and that's what this did. So.
There was one thing I was hoping to see, and that was because I thought, if anything, I didn't think they were going to do X-Men. I thought, well, yeah, they could do Doctor Strange. That won't be a surprise because Wanda's in the new Doctor Strange film. So the one thing I was hoping, if they were going to do anything from out of nowhere, I thought they might have introduced the Fantastic Four in this.
Yeah, aye. Which that was one of the rumors, like the person who was going to build the car could have been Reed Richards. Yeah. And
the only thing with that is, I didn't buy into, like, there was a lot of things, oh, they're setting it up for this engineer's going to be a massive reveal. I was like, no, they haven't. I was like, they've mentioned this engineer twice, but then watching it back, they never said their name. I thought, well, maybe that's why people thought, oh, who is it? Because they're not mentioning the name.
I mean, the Senor Scratchy thing and things as well, you know, about being possibly Satan or whatever, or the devil, sorry.
Yeah, because isn't in the comics, her son is called Scratch, is he not, or something like that?
Yeah,
something to do with that.
Stephen Scratch, probably, isn't it? It's Marvel's sort of being alliterative name. Anyway, we've been recording for about half an hour now, and we've talked mainly about what they didn't do.
Yeah. That's us. Welcome to Waffle. That's what we do.
But so I was going to say, like, what was your favourite episode then? Do you have a favourite? Or favourite moment?
There's loads of favourite moments. My favourite episode might be the second to last one.
Mine too.
Like
that's mine.
Yeah, the flashback thing, yeah.
It's actually called Previously On. I noticed that today. Brilliant.
I love the titles of each episode.
I'd never noticed them when they were coming out, but I did watching through it again, yeah.
Very clever. But what my favourite moment, or what episode is it? It's 4 or 5. It's basically Vision's twigging on there's something not right here. And it's the episode where he does his little touch on the side of the head of Norm.
Yes.
And the real guy breaks out and he's like, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that. And he goes back and Wanda's like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And the credits start rolling and the music's playing. And the conversation between Wanda and Vision just turns. Vision's like, like, what are you doing?
And they both fly up and they're opposite each other like that.
Yeah, but then...
You can't see this, listeners, but I'm doing it with my fingers.
Yeah, that looks about right.
They've got the knees up, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
And then, so, before that, though, it's like how the nice, happy-go-lucky music's playing, the credits start rolling.
Aye.
And the sound, what you're hearing, what you're kind of seeing with words, is all nice and happy, but what you hear in the dialogue is anger. And she's like, you've never spoken to me like this before. And he says something on the lines of like, he doesn't know what he's done before.
Yeah.
He's like, why don't I know anything, blah, blah. And
she's trying to do what she's done in the previous episodes and just wind it forward and wind it back and just move on and just change the room or whatever and move forward a decade in sitcoms. And he's like, no.
Because he says something like, you can't control me like you control everybody else. And she just goes, can't I? And it's like, oh.
I created you, bitch. Oh, What? Fuck! You did what?
Because the one thing I was hoping for, because it would have been left field, like me and you will watch review stuff on YouTube and that, and you kind of get influenced by maybe what you want and what you expect. We both watched John Campia. He wanted it to go balls to the wall. Wanda is evil. She's the villain. She's turned to the dark side. And because a lot of it, to be honest, it is setting up that. Because what she's doing isn't nice.
The thing is, I think it does do that, and I think she shouldn't have gotten away as lightly as she did with it. Like, if that was ISIS that took a town captive and tortured them for a couple of weeks, what was it, 9 weeks in our heads, or was it a few days? No matter how long ISIS tortured... Keep saying ISIS. Well, let's get pulled down if I keep saying ISIS.
Oh, God.
Whatever terrorist organisation, if they were to take a whole town captive and torture every single member of that town, including the children, by the way, we would not be saying, oh, bless her, but she's just a bit upset the way. We wouldn't be saying, no matter who was doing it, we'd be like, oh, these people need to be controlled, by the way. They need to be stopped from doing that, and they don't get away with it just because they're sorry or they didn't mean to do it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. It's fucking tough. These people didn't have a choice in the torture, and the children were trapped in cupboards being mentally abused and stuff like that for however long you were there. You don't just get to walk out. Monica Rambeau's like, oh, they'll never know what you sacrificed. Like, well, yeah, she did sacrifice, but the things that she sacrificed were either already dead or didn't exist before she fucked up in the first place. Yeah. So, sorry, this rant was brought to you by Billy.
But it's true, though, because, again, that's what I was I was thinking she has to go full evil here. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see her break down, because I was thinking when the other Vision turns up, he's going to kill the Vision she's created. It's going to kill the boys, and she's just going to lose the shit. Uh-huh. That's her evil, boom. But I was kind of dreading this cookie-cutter comic book film ending where it all works out for the best. You kind of got the best of both worlds. Yeah. You kind of got a bit of both. But again, what you said is completely right. What she did was evil. She tortured these people. They said so much. Like the woman at the end, I can't remember the actress's name, but she played Phoebe's brother's wife in Friends.
Yes, somebody Jo Rudd. Deborah Jo Rudd. Yes.
Well, she's like, if you're not going to let us go, can you kill us? She says something like that, and that's what she's done to those people.
Aye, exactly. And that actually, I mean. Fair play to them, for the writers and the actors and all that sort of stuff. That brings it bang straight there. You know what they're talking about. You know what they've gone through. She wants to die rather than enduring any more of this.
Yeah, but that's what I loved about this. They weren't scared to take it to dark places. No, but that's what I loved about the writing of this, because yes, it's bad what she's doing, and yes, you're saying like if this was real life, nobody would care about why these people are doing this. But it tells you, because I forgot and I didn't realise just what she's went through. Aye. This is a broken woman.
Oh, they really sort of spell it out. Again, that's why my favourite episode, same as yours, is episode 8, because it goes back through everything, all the torture and turmoil that she's been through. So you kind of are sympathetic with her. The thing my favourite thing about the whole thing is that it's grief. It's so relatable, you know. And the bit that made me cry the most was the end, the actual end, when Vision and her are stood in the living room. They said goodbye to the boys. Man. That absolutely crushed me. But the bit that made me cry in episode 8... Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when she says to the sons, thanks for choosing me to be your mum.
Oh, yeah, that got me.
Fuck. Yeah. Oh, man. I've read and heard things online about how people are like, oh, that's a bit weird how she tuck her sons into bed and then let them die. Well, it's like, yeah. It's like, why she didn't say, oh, you know, this is it, blah, blah. No, she wouldn't. You wouldn't. She wants her kids to go to sleep happy and in love.
When the comet's coming down, you hug your children closely and you just put the telly on, don't you? You don't tell them to look out the window.
Yeah, if something scary is going on, you distract them.
Yeah.
You know, and they say, when she says, thanks for choosing me to be your mum, thanks for choosing me. And I was like, this woman's lost everything. She's losing everything again. Yeah. She's going to see Vision die for the third fucking time.
Oh, that was the thing with Vision's death as well. We're in spoilers, aren't we? Yeah.
No, we're in spoilers.
Well, the thing with Vision's death is,
I hope so.
None of these deaths have ever meant anything to me. The end of Infinity War, I'm like, well, they're all coming back in the next one. This is a two-parter. We already know that. You know, even Vision's death kind of got me a bit in the film. But out of all the Marvel stuff, all the deaths in Marvel, they made Vision's death stick. And I thought that watching through this from the start again, he's dead at the beginning of this. And when you're watching through fully knowing that Vision is dead, and this is just her grief bursting out of her, you're like, oh fuck! And then you get to the end, like you say, she's losing vision for the third time, and even though he's saying, "I've been a disembodied voice, I've been a body but not human. Who knows what'll be next?" And he says, "We've said goodbye before. I feel sure we'll say hello again." But you know he's still dying, like he's still having his death. Even though, like, that's one thing I always have problems with films about consciousness. You're not transferring your consciousness, you're copying your consciousness, and he has done into White Vision. But even so, he still has to have his death. He still has to die. The Ship of Theseus thing's brilliant for that as well, because everyone knows the Ship of Theseus and things like that, and you've had that thought experiment. But what does that actually mean practically? And they do such a good job with that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Like one thing, like the writing in this is so good. Like even some lines that might sound cheesy, like that bit where it's like, "Oh, we've said goodbye before we'll say hello again," or whatever. That could be really cheesy if delivered a certain way.
Well, those are the small moments that I mentioned that has absolutely crushed me.
Yeah, and when Monica goes back in, and one is like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Just have to stop it." And she just turns around and goes, "No, don't make me hurt you," because that's just how much she does not want this to go. She doesn't want to lose these people again. But at the end, the realization. She could have easily like broke down and like she could have turned that performance into more cry and more, but she didn't. She just held it back and she made it internal. The bit on the flashback episode when they're in the Avengers compound and she's sitting on the bed watching Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
The conversation that goes on between them and just the way she looks at him sometimes and laughs and just little things like that.
Yeah. And his little sort of nervous laughters as well, like tiny little things that he does when he laughs and he looks to her to make sure that he is supposed to be laughing.
Yeah,
and she's like, "No,
so
it's
good.
funny." It's like,
it's adorable.
It's so cute. It is adorable. And you sent me a meme of that, so I won't spoil you doing the line if you want to do the line.
No, I'll try to think the line exactly.
What is grief if not love persevering?
Man. What poet came up with that? Why have I not heard that before? That should be something you expect.
I know. And in that same episode as well, like when she finally gets to the house where they were going to live and the grief bursts out of her.
Yeah.
Everything hit home for me in that moment because I'd cried at the video box because you'd realised this is what it's all about. This is why it's all sitcoms for her, because that's her touchstone.
That was her sort of happy place.
And then when she gets to the house and the grief sort of bursts out of her, I thought, when I've grieved before, I do get angry and I might lash out at people and that does hurt other people, and you're like, oh fuck, that's so relatable as a human. And it's, what are they doing, Marvel, in this to me emotionally? And when you have a memory of someone, like that memory of Vision comes out of her and it becomes corporeal and all that sort of thing. But when you remember someone who you've grieved about before, you then have to mourn and lose them again a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was so beautiful.
It is.
The whole series is just that.
There's certain bits in this just where it's just like, there's no other way to describe it other than beautiful. That can be overused, that word, to describe things. It can sound a bit pretentious sometimes, whatever. But no, in a superhero TV series where there's a witch, there's like this robot that can fly and like zoom through things like a ghost. There's people who run really fast. There's all that kind of stuff. It's the emotional stuff that really stood out in this, and it was a drama, simple as.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. Like no matter what else they did, they were true to the emotional heart of what they were writing and what they were making, and that all paid off. So for me, it didn't matter if they left some ends hanging or they didn't quite do everything that I wanted them to do. It doesn't matter because they told the story that they were telling and they absolutely nailed it.
And let's be honest, like I said, it's going to be playing into the new Spider-Man film. It's going to be playing in Doctor Strange 2. As far as I know, there's not going to be a series 2, so this is it. What we've got, it's basically like, it's Wanda's solo film, but split up into 9 episodes. So it's a lot more of Wanda. It's like she's got her own trilogy. If you think about it, time-wise, it could work out as a trilogy of films.
Yeah.
Aye. So this is her story. They could have easily wrapped everything up in a bow, as you usually do with a series, if it's only going to be those finite number of episodes. But they didn't, because they're going to touch on things. They mentioned the Sorcerer Supreme in the final episode. So she's going to be in Doctor Strange 2. So things could get brought up and wrapped up in that. So there's plenty of time to tie up some loose ends that might be.
Aye. Well, also as well, one thing Kevin Feige's mentioned is, and I never thought about it until this, but it's an origin story, and I'm like, Fuck, it is.
Yeah.
And I thought I was sick of them.
Yeah, it's the origin of the Scarlet Witch, and that's what I found funny, because we've all referred to her as the Scarlet Witch in previous films, but Marvel never have.
No, she's Wanda, isn't
Yeah.
she? One thing I'll put in as a negative, but it's just for me. I always think back to a review I watched with Alonso Duralde, and he always says, or has said, "Don't review the film they didn't make."
You're right. Yeah.
And I love that but if it's justified,
Yeah.
I was a bit disappointed that the magic was just lights shooting at each other.
Right.
Because they kind of got Vision, right? Because Vision flies and he's phasing and stuff and using his powers a bit more. And I thought, well, you've spent all this time building Wanda up as a magical character now. What are you going to do with magic? Because they did loads of great stuff with Doctor Strange so far, and they did use the runes. So she has learned something, so that was a payoff. But I just thought there could have been a bit more, Vision was phasing in and out and things like that, and he stayed true to his character by having the intellectual, philosophical conversation that eventually resolved the conflict. So I thought maybe Wanda could have had a bit more of that.
Yeah, I get that.
Rather than just shooting like each other.
There was a bit where she used her sort of old Wanda power, when the little sort of mind manipulation.
The wibbly booblies or whatever. Because Evan Peters, they do throw shade at their own films as well.
Oh, they do, yeah. And it was just when Agnes is revealed to be Agatha, she's like, that accent really does come and go.
She does. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Sorry, you want to go?
No, I was just going to say, like as fans, we all can take stuff like that so seriously, but when Marvel don't take themselves seriously, why should we? If they're going to take the mick out of themselves and point little flaws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what I like what they did with her accent, it really came out when she was the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, or they picked the moments for it, and people have been saying, "Oh, where did that accent go over the films? Because it was in one film and then it wasn't in any of the other films." And you're like, this is why, and they had a reason for it. Like, fuck yeah, well done. I've got to talk musical themes.
Right.
My favourite, I think, is maybe the Naughties episode where they were doing the sort of Malcolm in the Middle, and Agatha Harkness had naughty over her pants and stuff like that. That was my favourite intro. But Agatha all along.
That was like right in the charts, like the
was
download
it?
charts. I don't know if it got number one, but it got up there.
Oh, brilliant!
But because I loved it, because it reminded me of like is it the Munsters and things like that, had that kind of feel to it.
It did. You're right.
Another thing, like the lyrics to that, because to begin with, I thought they were just because Agatha all along was telling us, oh, she's doing everything. But it's not. It was like the things that didn't make sense she was doing. The things that we're all questioning she was doing.
Yeah. And there's loads of sort of like hints to things that you get on your second viewing. Like to the advert, the Yo Magic advert. And that was just before you learned that Agatha was draining Yo Magic.
Yeah.
I've got the list of adverts. I actually listed them down when I was going through them because I kind of want to talk them. So the first one is a Stark toaster. So okay, that's Stark. The next one is Strucker, a Strucker watch. So it's got Hydra written of it, and that's Baron von Strucker.
Yeah.
He's the one that kept her captive and did experiments on her and her brother and things. Hydra Soak is the bath soap in episode 3.
And Hydra's self-explanatory.
And in the episode 4 there wasn't, because that was the recap episode from the outside.
But
it did finish with Voodoo Child, which I thought was a cool thing, because that's a good voodoo magic thing. I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah.
Lagos paper towels, when you make a mess that you didn't mean to. I can't believe I didn't actually, I was like, what was Lagos again? Oh yeah. And then Yo Magic was episode 6, and then the next one was Nexus Antidepressant.
I didn't know what that was, and it was only through watching
it was Kevin Smith. I watched Kevin Smith was like, it's Nexus being multi-dimensional, so Nexus is something that's constant throughout. Yeah. Aye, so that's them. That's all there was. That's all the adverts that we had. Did you watch the post credits this time, Sean?
I did. But that's the thing. The first time they did a post-credit thing, or technically a mid-credit thing, it didn't do anything. It was pointless, I thought, the first one.
The first one was Snoopers Going Snoop, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just kind of like, it just seemed a bit like, why was that the first one?
Why was that a post-credits? Yeah, just put that at the end of the episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I was speaking to people about it, even on the last episode, I was like, oh, what did you think of Wanda in the cabin? And everyone, and the people that I was speaking to were like, what? Like, it's Marvel. I stayed until the end of the credits. You know, the ones where it tells you
Yeah.
who did all the voices in all the different countries and things like that.
But you mentioned the music.
Uh-huh.
What I really liked was obviously the TV themes themselves.
Yeah, aye.
Each one of them really fun. But just the general score of it as well, I thought was quite good. And the use of other songs, like Voodoo Child and things like that. The use of other songs that they played.
Did you know who did the TV theme?
No.
I can't remember the names, but it's the husband and wife couple who write all the music for Frozen.
Oh, Lopez. Yes. Because he did Avenue Q, which was one of my favourite musicals. Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez.
One thing they showed you how they sort of came up with the WandaVision, and then everything was just a riff on that. But there was some really good musical talent that got involved in those things.
Each one of them sounded like it could have been just ripped from the time period it was meant to be in. They were really clever.
Speaking of score as well, I was finished watching I was almost at the end of episode 9, and Phil, friend of the podcast, hi Phil, had texted me to say, "Oh, what did you think of the last scene?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, great. The kids were screaming and stuff. Was that the kids screaming?" It's like, "What did you think of the score?" I'm like, "Never noticed it. What happened?" And apparently it's the Doctor Strange score in a minor key that's played over the end of that. Did you get that?
I didn't know. Well spotted. But if anyone else, feel free to let us know. Contact us about stuff.
Let us know of everything that we've missed from WandaVision.
Yes, because there will be. We're already past the window we set ourselves. But it makes sense if she's going to be in Doctor Strange 2, so that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I did love that bit. I was so I was like, oh, she's got her own little cabin. Bless her, she's all alone. Wait a minute, it's herself and her. I know. She's got herself a company there.
I almost thought, after all the grief stuff, I thought she needs to be around some Avengers. She needs someone to hug.
That's one thing, right? If you think about it, where were the Avengers? Where were they? Because a lot of them they're gone, or they're now old or whatever. But I get it.
That never bothers me. I never think about that because they're telling what the story they're telling.
Yeah. But sometimes it's like, right, for us, it was 9 episodes, 9 weeks. For them, I think it was in storyline. I think it's 3 days, 4 days. If anything, I think one person that maybe should have been. I thought Hawkeye, because every other time she's had a bit of a moment, he's been there to talk around.
Yeah.
Calm her down, get her on side.
Fuck all else to do with all them weird haircuts.
Yeah, because on
and
Ultron,
kicking his mate over a cliff.
Yeah.
So, spoilers for Infinity War? No, Endgame. Sorry.
Because on Age of Ultron, where Wanda and Pietro are introduced, he's the one who gets her to come around. He's like, because the city's flying, He's like, come on, either help us or just or don't. And he gets her on side, and he's there. Her brother dies for him.
Yes, because he stops the bullet whilst Hawkeye's helping people onto that craft. And you forget all that. I mean, after every episode, Disney Plus was trying to get me to watch Age of Ultron. I didn't.
Well, that's because I read a theory that Ultron's going to be the big bad, because it was everybody, I think, was getting that. Because sometimes I think it just pops up whatever they think for you. But no, it was always Age of Ultron.
It was always, but I suppose that's the reason for that is because
it's her first introduction.
It is her origin story. So
for me, right, the whole sitcom thing, like I said earlier on, it was a brave choice, because those styles of sitcoms haven't been popular for so long, and it's brave because a lot of the Marvel fans won't know what the Dick Van Dyke Show is. They won't know. Some of them won't even know what Malcolm in the Middle was.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it didn't actually touch on any sitcoms that I've ever been interested in or watched. I was aware of Malcolm in the Middle, and was aware of the other ones that it touched on, and I've probably seen the odd episode of Bewitched and the Dick Van Dyke Show, but I was never really into them. And I was surprised that they sort of skipped over the likes of Friends and How I Met Your Mother and things. But I suppose with the ones that, looking back over it, the ones that they used fed better into the story they were telling. So
yeah, and because a lot of the ones they used as well they stood out a bit, had something different. Because Malcolm in the Middle, they had that narration, they spoke to you and stuff like that.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Again, Modern Family, it's the Office type thing. It's the interviews, fake documentaries. But then if they did the 90s and stuff, nothing really stands out about that kind of style. Mm-hmm. There's nothing unique about them.
Yeah.
Where the other ones, what's unique about the other ones, it's the look of them.
Yeah.
Like, because 91s, some of them still hold up visually today. They look like, there was an episode of Friends on the TV, shock, and I caught it the other day, and it looked like it wasn't that long ago, to be fair to it.
Aye.
So the 80s ones, there's something that stands out about them more. So I get why they
The
didn't
thing
go
you
for
would have
the
done with Friends would be the sets, I would imagine. It would be the colours and the, when you had that
Yeah.
thing on the door or something. But when I was thinking about what they were actually doing, the time to break the fourth wall was that time. So they needed to break
Yeah.
the fourth wall. So using that style made sense, And I didn't notice it the first time through, but when they replay the intro to the Dick Van Dyke Show and he falls over that poof.
Yeah.
But then Vision walks through it, like just little things I picked up on the second one. I was like, oh yeah.
And again, going back to what you were saying about like what our favorite episode is, because they could have easily went like, wait, she's going to have to set up her own little universe. It's going to be broadcasting like a TV show. What can we do? They could have easily said we could do a superhero show. We can do like superhero films. It can be something. And they went for vintage sitcoms, and it's just such a brave sitcoms, because like we're saying, it's so emotional. It's all about grief. It's all about loss. Sitcoms was a perfect choice.
Yeah.
Because it brings a levity.
Aye.
And it brings that little bit of like happiness that they need, and it's her happy world. And the way they touch into her family, like watching that kind of stuff, because her dad's selling them to make a bit of money. They're learning English.
Yeah. Oh.
And and that was her happy time. Like when young Wanda's watching it, just the massive smile on her face.
It was one of those ones where as soon as I saw the smile on her face, everything clicked and a tear just started rolling down my face. I'm like, oh, it's perfect.
And because we know the story, like I was like, this is going to be the day where our family dies. I was like, this is it, and then boom. I was like, bastards.
Did you watch episode 10 yet?
Like the behind the scenes documentary thing. Because I've been watching that much stuff for this episode, I haven't got back to it. I'm going to watch it tomorrow.
I'll get into it. I won't spoil anything for you. If I hadn't been watching that for this podcast, I would have stopped watching it, because it really got on my nerves how much they were blowing themselves about how good they were. It's like, we had to get the original lights, and we had to get this audience stuff. It's like, look, mate, you could have fucking done this on a lesser budget, but Marvel were chucking money at you, so you decided to do it like this. That's fine, but stop sucking your own dick about it so much and just get on with it. And they were all like that. Like every single person that they interviewed, Elizabeth Olsen was like, oh, I was so happy that I got to do this, and I've learned all this stuff in film school, and you do all these things, and you never think you're going to have to use it, and now I have. It's like, look, right, okay, it's a job. Stop, just stop. It wasn't that good. And I think it was just, we don't want things to be that saccharine. We're a cynical nation, the Brits. We want there to be something shit. Like, even if everyone loved each other and everyone got on like a house on fire every day on set, we still want there to be something a bit shit that we want to find out exposed in this documentary. And it was just all of that. We had such a good time making it, and aren't we good? And isn't this the best thing you've ever seen? It's like, it was really fucking good, but stop blowing yourself about it. This rant was also brought to you by Billy. So why am I ranting? I love this fucking show. Why am I ranting about it so much?
This is a safe space. If you want to rant, you rant. But it might have been the best place to work. It might have been the happiest environment. And I get to what you mentioned about it was great for going back to film school type thing and getting to act a certain way. Because obviously I get that. An opportunity to act like you're in a 50s sitcom. They're not going to make those styles of sitcoms anymore. So if you're getting an opportunity to dress like that, to act like that in a set like that, it's like you're doing a period piece. So I get the excitement, and there's so much. One day she'll be doing that, the next day she'll be on wires, flying and shooting magic out of her hands. So I hope, because obviously I don't know if they're going to, because obviously next week the Falcon and Winter Soldier is on, and they've got a job in their hands.
Yeah.
But Marvel, they're off to a good start with WandaVision.
They are, and given that I was not interested in this, I was starting to think well, who else would I want to see have this sort of time spent on their character? And the first one that popped into my head was Falcon. But I thought I might want a Falcon prequel with his original partner that led up to him being in that sort of help group where Cap meets him. That's sort of what I want to see of Falcon. Maybe there's a comic book for that. Listeners, if there's a comic book that I can read that would give me that story, can you let us know? Please? Listeners, are you there? Listeners! The one thing we haven't talked about, that I've got on my list, is Monica Rambeau.
No, that was because I don't know. Obviously, all I know about her is what we see in Captain Marvel.
Well, I had that spoiled on the cast list. I went to the cast list. I'm like, is that Catherine Hahn? And next door, I was like, it looks like Catherine Hahn, but because she was all dolled up in the first one,
Yeah,
I couldn't tell. So I went up to a cast list. I was like, it is Catherine Hahn. She's playing Agnes next door. I was like, oh, that's fine. And then just on the same page, I was like, what, Monica Rambeau's in this? But of course, she wasn't Monica Rambeau until like episode 4 or something. And I was like, oh, that's spoiled that for me.
well, because kind of something happened with them. Because I went onto the first, like, it was IMDb, and it said that Kat Dennings was in episode 1, but she's not.
All right, aye.
Well, technically her hands are.
I thought she might have more to do when she got into the town as well. Again, stop reviewing what they didn't make, but I mean, because she's got that sitcom pedigree, and they all have as well. Like, I didn't, Elizabeth Olsen would have been sat around sets watching her sisters in a sitcom for most of the 90s, and the director Matt Shackman, who directed the whole thing, and he was a child actor on 80s and 90s sitcoms.
All right, I've not looked into it, to be honest. So.
Billy's Trivia Corner.
You're not stealing that bit, right? That's my bit.
That is yours. That's your thing. Another bit of trivia as well, which you actually alerted me to, and I'd completely missed, is that, and no one else is going to have this trivia. We'll just put that out there. Absolutely no other podcast will have this piece of trivia. Go and get all your friends, get them to listen to this. Listen to a podcast as this is an absolute exclusive piece of trivia just to this podcast. My dad's called Billy, and his twin, who's a couple of minutes older than him, is called Tommy. And they had a pet called Sparky.
It's brilliant. Sparky wasn't a dog.
He wasn't a dog, no. But maybe in WandaVision it wasn't a dog. Maybe it was a sheep, by the way.
Yeah.
They had a pet sheep. Who played with the dog as well? It thought it was a dog.
Yeah, it thought it was a dog. It'd go and walk with the dog.
Maybe that was WandaVision. Maybe they've heard that story from one of our family members.
I'm telling you, Wanda is your granny.
Oh, she's dead now. Got to grief and mourn her.
Have you got any latent super abilities?
No, I'm not fast. Well, I am fast. Rapid refreshes. That's where I get that from. I've inherited. So it's so diluted through the ages that my quick power is that I can talk quite quickly and I never shut up. Brilliant.
One day you're just going to explode this massive just talking and it's just going to create a world.
Imagine that if everything I say becomes true.
Oh, God.
Oh, shit. I better stop talking. Sorry, we were talking about Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, we're just jumping ahead. Never mind that. So
Monica Rambeau, what I was going to say about her was I liked the way they used the blip, and I'm excited about what they might do in the future.
Yes, because it's the first time you see people actually come out of it, as far as I remember.
The Spider-Man did it. Oh no, so you didn't see them unfazed, did you? Sort of thing. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and how she just didn't have a clue what was going on. I would have liked them to maybe dive into how she dealt with that a little bit more.
Because she's been robbed of her last minute. She was sat by her mum's bed and she was sick.
Yeah, and
she didn't get to say goodbye or anything like that. She was robbed of that. So it's not an inconsequential thing.
Like I know she kind of touches on it at the end when she says to Wanda, if I could, I would have brought her back.
Yeah.
So she gets why Wanda did it. So they're kind of touching it a bit, but yeah, maybe. And there's something with her and Captain Marvel. Every time she's brought up Captain Marvel, like she's caught up with her at some point, or maybe she hasn't, because she's not happy with Captain Marvel. Every time they mention her, she changes the subject. So no, we're not talking about her.
Yeah, because she kind of when she first comes back. And that guy's walking through the corridor and he says, oh, base is full of enemies. And she's like, yeah, it always has been. And friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, does she mean Captain Marvel there? But then you're right, when they're talking about Captain Marvel later on, she kind of changes the subject.
Yeah.
And she's now got superpowers.
Yeah.
Because of that. So, there's rumours that she might be Photon. I noticed on the way through, it focuses in on her mum's call sign.
Yeah, and because I think she's had I don't pretend to know a lot about the comics, but I think she's had 3 or 4. I think she has been Captain Marvel at some point as well. And it's Photon.
Yes, she has, yeah.
There's Photon something else in Captain Marvel, I think she's been.
I thought that was a bit cheap at the end where they get and now the Skrulls have come to take away Monica Rambeau, and I'm like, don't let that be the last thing in WandaVision. If it was going to be, then it should be either Wanda walking out the town on her own or losing everything at the house.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be come to space with us. It's like, no, you completely ruined the emotional end to that story.
But again, obviously, the thing I think they can kind of get away with it a little bit because it's not just your average TV series.
No.
It ties into the bigger universe, so they can kind of get away with that. So overall, and go and give you overall assessment. What do you think? I think it's clear. It's safe to say we both loved it.
Yeah, I absolutely did. I absolutely loved it. There's a few minor points for me, but overall, I loved the way they did it. I loved the way they structured it. I loved the release schedule. I like how I wasn't going to watch any Marvel TV series, but now I want to watch everything that Marvel ever does. They could do anything now, and I'll watch it. I was into the films, but now I'm more into this. And the biggest thing I loved about this was that they were true to the emotional heart of the characters and the story that they wanted to tell. And for me, that's everything.
You took the words right in me, Gob. I mean, to me, I think one bit we kind of differ on is how you were saying, you thought Catherine Hahn was kind of the standout for you, and she was amazing. But to me, it was all about Elizabeth Olsen for me. I think she was amazing in it. But yeah, like you said, they didn't forget the emotional points of it. They didn't stray away from that. Yes, it was funny. It had its little moments. It went a bit. It took you there. But at the heart of it, it was about a woman dealing with her grief, and they weren't scared to shy away. They didn't shy away from it. They weren't scared to dive into it. They didn't forget that's what that was about in a superhero setting. And I love how brave they were with the choices they made.
If you enjoyed this one, you may be interested to know that this was just a small part of a larger waffle that we do every 2 weeks. You'll be able to find that wherever you found this one, hopefully. You'll also be able to follow us on all of our social media platforms linked below. And if you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so anytime you like. You can reach out on social media, or you can email us at w.a.f.f.l.e.podd@gmail.com. Goodbye.